What happens when a nation wins its independence only to collapse into one of Africa's deadliest civil wars within just 2 years? Between 1977 and 1992, Mozambique was torn apart by a brutal conflict that killed over 1 million people, displaced millions more, and left scars that still shape the country today. This is the story of how Cold War rivalries, ideological battles, and local struggles collided to create a war that nearly destroyed a nation. Mozambique's nightmare began in victory. In 1975, after a decade-long liberation struggle, the Mozambique Liberation Front, or FRELIMO, secured independence from Portugal. Samora Machel, a fiery revolutionary, became the nation's first president. But independence was not freedom. Overnight, hundreds of thousands of Portuguese settlers fled or were expelled. Doctors, engineers, teachers, and businessmen vanished. Mozambique's infrastructure collapsed, railways broke down, schools closed, and farms went untended. The new nation inherited the ruins of colonialism and had almost no one left to rebuild it. Machel and FRELIMO were determined to reshape Mozambique. At their 1977 Congress, they declared Marxism-Leninism the guiding ideology. The goal was bold: a modern socialist state, free of inequality and tribal divisions. But ideals clashed with reality. Private property was abolished. Millions were forced into state-run communal villages. Those who resisted were labeled enemies of the revolution. Re-education camps swallowed critic instead of unity. Resentment grew. Rural communities, stripped of traditions and left without services, began to lose faith in the government, and into this void stepped a new enemy. In 1976, the Rhodesian intelligence service created the Mozambican National Resistance, RENAMO. Its goal? Punish Mozambique for supporting Zimbabwean freedom fighters. At first, RENAMO was small, with only dozens of fighters, but when Rhodesia fell in 1980, Apartheid South Africa took over, and RENAMO transformed into a powerful proxy army. Afonso Dhlakama, its longtime leader, commanded fighters who soon numbered over 20,000. Trained and armed by Pretoria, they launched brutal raids across Mozambique. Schools were burned, hospitals destroyed, power lines cut, villages massacred. The goal was clear: to destabilize Mozambique, terrorize civilians, and prevent FRELIMO from supporting South Africa's liberation movements. The Mozambican Civil War was not fought over territory. It was a war over people. RENAMO kidnapped children, forcing them to fight as soldiers. Entire villages were enslaved, starved, or massacred. By 1989, UNICEF estimated that 250,000 children had been separated from their families. FRELIMO, desperate to defend the nation, relied on foreign troops from Zimbabwe and Tanzania, and forced civilians into protected villages. But these camps often lacked food and water, creating more misery than safety. Both sides laid landmines by the millions, poisoning Mozambique's fields and roads for decades to come. At its peak, RENAMO destroyed over 1,400 power pylons in the Beira Corridor, plunging the nation into darkness. By the mid-1980s, much of Mozambique was reduced to a Stone Age condition. By the mid-1980s, both sides were exhausted. In 1984, President Samora Machel signed the Incommati Accord with South Africa, hoping to stop RENAMO's support. But Pretoria betrayed the deal, secretly arming the rebels even more. Then, in 1986, tragedy struck. Machel died in a mysterious plane crash near the South African border. His successor, Joaquim Chissano, saw what Machel did not. Mozambique needed reform. Chissano abandoned Marxism. He turned to the IMF and World Bank, introduced multi-party politics, and reached out to the West. But the biggest shift came from abroad. As the Soviet Union collapsed and apartheid South Africa crumbled, both FRELIMO and RENAMO lost their main sponsors. For the first time, peace seemed possible. Peace did not come easily. Years of talks, mediated not by governments but by the Catholic lay movement Sant'Egidio in Rome, finally bore fruit. On October 4, 1992, FRELIMO and RENAMO signed the Rome General Peace Accords. The United Nations launched a major mission, UNMOZ, to monitor the ceasefire, disarm fighters, and resettle millions of refugees. Over 76,000 soldiers were demobilized. RENAMO transitioned from a rebel movement into a political party. And in 1994, Mozambique held its first democratic elections, a symbol of hope after years of bloodshed. But peace was fragile. FRELIMO kept its grip on power, blending party and state into one. Many ex-fighters, especially child soldiers, were excluded from reintegration programs. Their resentment would boil over years later. Between 2013 and 2016, RENAMO returned to arms, sparking new clashes that killed hundreds. Landmines continued to kill and cripple civilians decades after the war. Even today, Mozambique struggles with political exclusion, corruption, and violent insurgencies in the north. The shadow of war never truly left. The Mozambican Civil War was not just a Cold War proxy. It was a war of ideology, power, and survival, fought on the backs of ordinary Mozambicans. 1 million lives were lost, millions more were uprooted, and even today the lessons remain clear. Without justice, without inclusion, peace is fragile. If you found this story eye-opening, hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe for more powerful untold histories. And tell us in the comments, what lessons from Mozambique's struggle can the world learn today